On this week's podcast, Timmy and I dive into two non-controversial subjects, the Catholic Church and higher education.
Bald,
blind,
and buddies.
Timmy C., happy Sunday to you, pal. And a day late and a dollar short, as they say, but happy Valentine's Day. How was your Valentine's Day with your lovely bride there?
It was good. We went out to a nice, sort of Tex-Mex taco place. It was good. How about you?
You actually went out on Valentine's Day, huh?
Well, we went out on the 13th, but it's close enough.
So you're totally normal, because I'm always in shock, particularly the older I get, when people actually go out. We're going to go out this week or something, because it's chump night going out on Valentine's Day.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So you went out on Friday.
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. No, and I count that, and I agree with that. And the nice thing about living in the cool town where we live, and in fact, according to the New York Times, we have one of the top 50 restaurants in the country, about 3 blocks from my house. Yeah, it's a farm to table. It's extraordinarily good, expensive, the whole schmeal. So, and in fact, my buddy does their electrical work, and he was trying to get at the last minute, trying to get a dinner reservation for he and his wife, and possibly my wife and I, and I guess the owner was like, "Are you serious?" No, I can't do that. We've been booked for 7 months,
Yeah.
So no, we in fact, I just read an article that said that people who are in healthier marriages don't have to go out on Valentine's Day, and further, if you don't go on Valentine's Day, it's sort of the chicken or the egg. It leads to a healthier marriage. I mean, how they isolate that variable and so forth, but the basic premise is, it's kind of a chumps day, I would like to say. So,
yeah.
Did you get Blue Leaf anything? I got my wife some flowers, and she always liked gummy bears. And I think I got her a gift certificate to get her nails done.
Yeah, no, we kind of both, she got me a little bit of coffee, but we kind of both took it light. We call it the gift of the lazy. I could have gotten you something, but I didn't,
As opposed to the Magi.
Magi, yeah.
I like it. Yeah. Sometimes you're so witty, like when you were talking about the English driving on the wrong side of the road. And I was like, is he being witty, or is he,
just being wrong?
Blah, blah, blah. So sometimes that stuff you have to remind us common folk that you're making a joke.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, Timmy, great interview last week with Cherion Koshy, right? Wasn't it wonderful?
Yeah. It was. I liked it. I think we should invite him back at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of folks are, well, not a lot, but folks are liking various episodes on Substack, so we appreciate that. Keep them coming. I think it feeds the algorithm, and that's really cool, too.
Yeah, people ask me, they're like, we really enjoy, I'll meet random people, literally, and they're like, I really enjoy your podcast. How do I, help you guys? I said, my understanding is just rate it on Apple or Spotify, right? The stars, and if you can write a review, I think that drives the algorithm as well.
And share it personally. I think this is, for us, kind of a personal podcast. And so share it, if somebody likes it, chances are you might know somebody else who would like it. So just pass it on, too, in the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, people ask me all the time how this happened. I said, a blind guy lived next door to me freshman year, and we just argued all the time. So it hasn't changed, right? I mean, this is pretty much it. We would probably be doing this if we had no one listening.
We were, and I was like, we should at least do podcasts with this. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually came up with the idea. How about we just put it on tape?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. No, I enjoyed his expertise. I'm always fascinated by people, particularly in the psychological sciences and so forth, that see human behavior for what it is, as opposed to how do we structure human behavior based on reality, as opposed to what you want it to be. One of the most impressive things I've found, when they talk about recycling, for instance, everybody says they're for the environment, and we all know we should recycle, or we should do this, or we should do that. But how do you actually motivate people to do it? And one of their findings was either A, fine people, because fines will make people do the right behavior, right? But the other one is you point out that 7 of your 8 neighbors are doing it.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of public shaming to that aspect. That kind of stuff fascinates me, and I found that to be interesting about generosity in reverse with our last week's guest.
Yeah, no, totally. Well, and then I was reading a book about the cocaine empires in Miami, and a lot of the big time drug dealers would contribute to community projects, and they're real philanthropists. Would you be like, I'm okay with your cocaine money? When he said all giving is good giving, I was like, well, yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, Pablo Escobar was a hero to people in Medellin.
Yeah.
I mean, a hero, not like, how dare you? It's one of those things that, I had been a waiter and a bartender for a number of years when I was teaching, as you know, Timmy. And there was a well-known mobster who used to come in, and he'd come in with his family on, and was just like at a Goodfellas, where it's, Saturday night is for wives and Friday night is for girlfriends. He'd come in with his girlfriend on Friday night. He'd come in with his wife and children on Saturday. And he got to the point where he'd request me, and he'd throw me $100 before he even sat down.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those things that, look, if I had known it was blood money, I probably wouldn't have taken it. But I don't know what do you suppose the moral quandary is there? I mean, how do you deal with that? Because I was just doing a job.
Yeah, but that really got me thinking what Cherion was talking about. So, more open to accepting beneficence from others whenever it comes from, as long as you're not being asked to do something illicit, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about for you at least, a source of moral guidance, not for me, in a few minutes. And by that, we just ruin the suspense and talk about the Catholic Church and our alma mater, but I'll talk about that.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. But I did want to give the answer to last week's trivia question before we had Mr. Joshi on, which was we recorded on Groundhog Day, or the day before Groundhog Day, and I had asked when was the first documented Groundhog Day, and further, statistically, how accurate has Phil been? Do you have any idea on either of those, Timmy?
I'd say 1872 and 60% accurate.
Not bad. You were completely off on the accuracy, but pretty close on the date. It was 1887 was the first documented trip to Gobbler's Knob. I think the prediction started in 1886, but over 150 plus years, he has proven to be accurate 39% of the time. So if he was a baseball player, he's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Well, you should fade him, right? So you should do the opposite of him, and then you're actually at
61.
61%.
61. Yeah, it is tough to do. I mean, you are a genius and ultimate doctor. It's tough to do math in your head. I got it.
Oh yeah, so, I get there.
Yeah. So you have a cool trivia question though, and it
I do.
involves World War II, which also involved our alma mater, which is again Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that Notre Dame plays Navy every year is because of World War II. They sent some midshipmen to Notre Dame to keep the doors open, and that's why, as a thank you, we play them every year. And I think even today, I'll have to check this again, but I think we graduate more folks from ROTC at Notre Dame than the Naval Academy themselves. I believe we still do. I know we did when you and I were there, but I don't know if it's still true today. So,
yeah.
But you wanted to tell us about the NFL.
I
you're
did.
reading. Tell us about the book you're reading, first of all.
Well, I got to pull up the title, but it's basically, it'll be in the show notes. It's on how the NFL grew to be what it is. It's by a New York Times reporter, and it features Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and Goodell. And I'm learning a lot about behind the scenes and the salary cap and concussions, and it's pretty fascinating.
The business side of anything really fascinates me.
Yeah,
I'm always fascinated by seeing the ins and outs of how bills ultimately came to pass or things of that nature. But no, I agree with you. But something happened in 1943. Every able-bodied man basically was drafted or was involved in the war effort. The NFL managed to, sustain itself. And you have a trivia question around my fair state, the Keystone State, right, Tim?
Yeah. So there was a shortage of players, and so they did drastic things, including merging teams. So what was the name of the team when the Pittsburgh Steelers merged with the Philadelphia Eagles?
1943.
1943. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, answer next week.
Yep.
But Timmy, let me just read the press release, right?
Yeah.
Because, I'll read sort of a brief synopsis of what the hubbub has been about with Notre Dame since about the second week of February. We're about halfway through, so it just started about 5, 6, 8 days ago. But it said U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops President Archbishop Paul Coakley is urging the University of Notre Dame to drop the leadership appointment of an outspoken pro-abortion professor, joining nearly a dozen other bishops in calling on the historic Catholic University to back away from the controversial decision. So, the controversy exploded this week after Fort Wayne, South Bend, Indiana Bishop Kevin Rhodes expressed dismay and strong opposition to the school's appointment of Professor Susan Ostermann as director of the school's Liu Institute for Asia and Asian Studies. Liu is spelled Liu. And then it goes on further. It says Ostermann has in the past spoken out strongly in favor of abortion and sharply criticized the pro-life movement, at times suggesting that its roots are in white supremacy and misogyny. So, you have strong opinions about this. You were the one who threw this out and said, I have strong opinions, so I'm going to let you hold court, sir. And then it is going to be my job to shoot holes in it, very similar to Swiss cheese.
Okay. All right. So let's pin this down. So they talk about advocacy. So, for example, in 2022, she co-authored a piece in the Chicago Tribune that was, How Do We Regain Abortion Rights? Take a page out of MAD's playbook. MAD's referring to Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
And please reference why it came out in 2022. That was when Dobbs happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So MADS is an interesting group. They're a group of mothers who ostensibly are in the goal of preserving life, right? And it rings true to people. It gets their heartstrings because, you know what? Most people are like, you know what? Let's keep children and young people and everybody alive, right? So it's ironic that an abortion movement wants to copy them. It doesn't quite resonate the way MADS does. I think she may be missing the point why MADS works. So I'm all for independent scholarship, right? That's what a university is supposed to do. However, that isn't scholarship, right? That's public advocacy. And it turns out it's not even in her field of study. She's into regulatory issues, comparative politics, and environmental studies. So she's not even speaking of which something she knows in her professorial capacity. She's just using her platform to get out there and say anti-Catholic, anti-life things. And then she gets appointed, and people are like, this university is appointing people who don't uphold core Catholic values. My bishop here in Madison is one of the bishops. There's a Bishop Barron who is pretty popular in the Catholic community. He has a podcast, kind of a thought leader in some ways. So there are people who are saying, hey, slow down here.
So you're agreeing with the Bishop of Madison saying that maybe she should not be appointed or slow down on the appointment. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it raises 3 points I want to go through in turn. Okay. I'll let you jump in as needed.
Okay.
The first one is she's speaking as a citizen about something that she cares about as a woman, an American, a voter, all those sorts of things. To your very point, what she's talking about is not why she was appointed. She was appointed as an expert in Asia and Asian American studies. She has every right, does she not, under the First Amendment, to voice her opinion on matters that are not related to her scholarship. So why should it matter that she's voicing this opinion? I would liken this, number one, and I would say the same thing in reverse, and I try to be intellectually consistent on this. If she says, I hate the Indianapolis Colts and we're based in Indiana, that doesn't mean I'm not going to hire her, right? So why does it matter?
Well, first of all, I think the university is quite true. It says she's well qualified. So do you know how many abortions China has carried out in the past 40 years?
Stay on point here because why does this have to do with her scholarship, though?
I am going to stay on point here.
All right.
So they're saying she's well qualified, right? China has aborted 330 million unborn fetuses, whatever you want to call them, in the past 40 years. They've aborted the population of the United States of America. So I could say that somebody who's comfortable with abortion up until the time of delivery, which China does, maybe that's useful. Maybe when you're swimming in those seas, you just have to or like to go for the whole abortion thing. Maybe.
Timmy, come on. You live in the real world here, pal. I mean, come on. The president of the United States, whether it be Biden and whether it be Trump, has gone over and basically all but kissed the ring of the Saudi Arabian princes who all but ordered the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. There are dirty little secrets we have to deal with in foreign policy. I'm not saying, and I want to be as clear as possible on this, I tend to be pro-life. That being said, I also will advocate to my dying day that abortion access should be a right.
330 million, John.
I understand that, Timmy, but look at how many people died in the Civil War, but it was necessary, right? I'm not saying that abortion's necessary. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are some hard truths that people who are against abortion have to accept. One of which is, since the Dobbs decision in the United States, not only has the number of abortions not gone down by deferring it back to states' rights, but I have a dirty little secret for you. It's actually gone up. I don't know if you know that. That's number one. Number two, it's estimated that all sorts of birth control. And whether you want to consider abortion birth control or murder, I will concede both. But it is estimated that abortion rights, for every dollar spent on preventative medicine, including abortion, it's worth $12 in economics. So for every dollar spent, there's a $12, 12 times return on every dollar.
You've mentioned how if we locked up 18 to 25-year-old males, the crime rate would drop like 90%.
Again,
but that doesn't mean we
point.
should, right?
Fair point. But my second point I want to make is I don't think this is germane to her scholarship and should have nothing to do with it. That's number one. Number two, I find it very, very difficult, increasingly, to reconcile a university, which is an academy, right? I mean, you and I have had multiple umpteen discussions about the academy, and you and I will both, be on the exact same page that it has lost its way. It's in many ways gone batshit. I get that. That being said, is it possible to be a university and to be Catholic? And I ask this in the same vein that I say increasingly I'm of the belief that it may be nearly impossible. I'm not saying it is impossible. I'm not saying that economics is, comparable to morality, but is it possible to maintain ethics and be a true capitalist? Because capitalism, by definition, it requires certain what I would consider to be unethical behavior. It's the best system of government out there, and I'm always reminded of Winston Churchill. It's the worst system ever invented, except for all the others, right? But hasn't the ship with Catholicism sailed with Notre Dame, with football, a long time ago? I'm the biggest football fan in the world, but I'm not sure that Catholicism and football have anything to do with each other. Do they?
I don't concede that capitalism requires lack of ethics.
No, but I'm not saying that it's completely the case. And in fact, I think it's possible to be ethical and to be a capitalist.
Yes.
I'm just not sure to what extremes the two can go hand in hand.
Well, it's interesting because I came to the same question / conclusion that you have is, what does it mean to be a Catholic university?
I think it's a contradiction in terms, Tim. That's what I'm saying. I don't think you can be Catholic, which is about restriction, control, and telling you what is acceptable and what is not, and an academy at the same time.
Well, and I would define Catholic differently, right? For example, thinking all life has value, right? So is Notre Dame just kind of we do a little service and we're kind of goody here and there? Like, is that what it means to be a Catholic university?
I think at this point it does. In 2026, yes, I do. I don't think it's possible to truly be Catholic. And then number two is, I liken this to premarital sex or children, kids having sex. I've got a 14-year-old. I've got kids. You've got kids. I will be the first person, because a friend of mine who was a priest years ago asked me if I was sexually active. And this was when I was in 14 or 15, and I was taken back by it. And I said, "You're a priest." And he said, "Look, I'd rather have an alive parishioner than a morally correct dead one." Mm-hmm. Meaning, there, just like, Cherion Koshy talked about limits of human understanding and behavior and so forth, I think it's important to understand that the primal drive of humanity is procreation. I don't want people having sex all over the place. And at ease saying this as well, I think birth control, condoms and such should be made readily available, even in religious-based institutions. I don't find any moral problem with that. Others do. But that's just me and that's the podcast.
But I guess, so here's the deal. If she has that scholarship, right?
On Asia and Asian studies.
Yes. So okay. She clearly has a skill set. Why would you, and certainly she has the right to, but why does she feel the need to speak out about abortion, knowing that perhaps it might impact your future job options, right? Like,
could not the same thing apply? Let me just play devil's advocate. Would it be okay for instance, the University of Notre Dame to hire the campaign manager for Trump? And just hear me out on this, because I'm working backwards. David Brooks of the New York Times held a roundtable discussion this week when he asked, particularly of Republicans, who had based their identity for so many years, particularly from Reagan onward, that morality mattered. That what a person stands for and represents matters. Mm-hmm. You could make the... Again, I'm not excusing his behavior, but that seems to be between he and Hillary Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Monica Lewinsky was an adult. Why am I bringing this up? Donald Trump, not once, but twice, based on his behavior. So would it be okay? And I would say it would be. And that's why I want you to understand that I'm trying to be intellectually consistent. If the expertise they're hiring Trump's campaign manager for is to teach electoral politics and, marketing 101 and so forth, that's what they're hiring him for. But it is also important to understand, from at least my perspective, that he or she worked for the least religious, godly person that has ever occupied the Oval Office. And that's an arbitrary, subjective statement. But I think you get what I'm saying, which is the idea that, look,
did he in his
Susan Ostermann might have strong opinions on abortion, but she's teaching about Asia.
Right.
If we hired Trump's campaign manager and they're teaching electoral politics, that's what their expertise is.
But to follow your analogy, did this guy write articles in Playboy that were misogynistic?
Timmy, President Trump talked about grabbing women by the genitals.
Yeah, but this guy, for all we know, did his job that he was hired for. Right.
But
This article in the Tribune isn't her job.
But again, I want to be clear here. I would be okay if Notre Dame had Trump, like they normally do. Every 4 years, they invite the president to come speak. Mm-hmm. He is the president. I would respect the office.
Right.
It doesn't excuse his previous behavior. Could not the same principle apply here to Susan Ostermann? She's an expert in Asia and Asian studies.
Yeah.
I
don't think this is a previous behavior. I think this is an ongoing behavior question too, right? Your last one, he went from
You've
A to
turned on
B.
the TV in the last 3 years, right? You've seen Trump behave, right? He started, and I will tell you this again. I don't know if I've said this to you. Remind me if I have. He attempted a coup d'etat in which 9 people died on January 6th. He's still the president, though. So there's a difficulty. And what I'm basically, probably for me, the most difficult thing is I don't think it's possible to be Catholic and an academy or a university first and foremost. Secondarily, I don't think Notre Dame is Catholic. I think that ship sailed with football. And thirdly, is the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops really sort of the moral standard you want to listen to? It may be for you, and I respect it for people that do. But they seem to pick their fights based on easy targets. It seems to me that Susan Ostermann is an easy target. And, oh, by the way, it just so happens she's a woman. I find that to be interesting. Don't you, Tim?
John.
Come on.
I'll tell you why, John. Because to some people, this abortion thing really matters. Because it actually, and I know how people think about it. They don't believe it's life. They believe the woman has autonomy. All those things. I understand that people can see it differently. But for people who think those are lives that are being thrown away, this really matters. So it does not surprise me that they have spoken up. And I agree with them on this. I don't agree with them on everything, but I understand why, and I think it's, that it is what it is.
Let me say it this way, okay? Because I think if the following were to happen, I'd be okay with it. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and for that matter, the Catholic Church, I have my umpteen criticisms, which I'll get into in just a second, that I think are legitimate against it. But I will go to bat that when it comes to the sanctity of life, they are pretty darn consistent, not just about abortion, but about warfare. They have been the ones that have been speaking out about treatment of migrants and ice in the streets and things of that nature.
The death penalty.
They were the ones that basically, really pushed for Terry Schiavo, for those in the audience, the 12 of you listening that are old enough to remember. They have been consistent on that. That's true. So they've been consistent on that. They have the right to speak out on this issue. But I would be okay if they speak out on this issue and she still gets appointed, which I think is going to happen.
I think so too.
But thirdly, I also find it very, very difficult. And two things can be true at the same time. They've been consistent on their statement on life. And I think it is a backwards organization. Show me an organization anywhere in the world, maybe outside of Iran, that is run by one gender, and that's okay. And the reason I bring that up, Timmy, and I'm not trying to be like this, crazy, throw everything against the wall. But I have 2 daughters, and my criticisms of the Catholic Church are not just about their stance on abortion. It's about their stance on birth control. It's about their stance on homosexuality. It's about their stance on women. I find it to be completely anathema to a functioning organization in the 21st century to be run by one gender. And there is a significant, it's not an insignificant, a significant statistical correlation between that type of behavior and dictatorships. Iran, Saudi Arabia, all these places, they try to subjugate women because of that. And again, people are like, oh, they could be nuns, but we tried separate but equal. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. I'm not going to an organization in which women are not considered equals. Periods, full stop. Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I think, the value of the Catholic Church is a whole separate podcast, but I would say that there are different roles and complementary roles that men and women play. And currently in the Catholic Church,
Can they give mass?
No.
Right. That's a big one to me.
It is a big one.
I mean, and again, the opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. And I'm in between indifference and hate with the Catholic Church because it's still, I grew up Catholic. My in-laws are Catholic. My parents are Catholic. My mom goes to church probably 4 or 5 times a week. I get it. Right. but I find it very difficult to square its behavior and, with some of this stuff. And I do find it ironic. I don't think it's by coincidence. And I think, by the way, Susan Ostermann is onto something about abortion and the rights for abortion. There are roots. I mean, there are roots in slavery with police forces. That doesn't mean that we don't need police forces. Just because
John, if you want to go there, there's roots in abortion with eugenics and trying to keep black and brown people from reproducing too much.
Absolutely.
Abortion itself has poisoned roots.
Yeah, 100%. I got it. Two things can be true at the same time. But I suppose at the end of the day, the difficulty for me is the following. I'm not sure the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is the moral standard to which I want to be listening, number one. Number two, I don't think Susan Ostermann's scholarship has anything to do with abortion, and because she has written extensively about it, there's a woman on the Supreme Court who taught at Notre Dame who has written on opinions that I don't necessarily agree with. She's qualified to be on the Supreme Court. I'm glad she's there. And thirdly, I just don't think you can be an academy, an institute, a university, and be Catholic at the same time. I think the two are counterintuitive. I do. I don't think you can have oil and water that way. I just don't.
See, so I would say the Council of Catholic Bishops can chime in on what it wants to, and if the issue resonates with people, it'll resonate, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And you don't have to wrap that up with every other Catholic decision. I would say that if you want to be a scholar of Asia, be a scholar of Asia, but don't write in the Chicago Tribune about abortion. I think Catholic universities can say this is what we stand for. We think life really matters, and there are just some things and some people we won't hire because that idea, the value of life is so important that we may turn down an otherwise well-qualified candidate.
And this is where you sound like a liberal, because you said that, to your point, I will give you credit. You have been consistent. You have said that Apple and these major companies should basically say, I'm not going to take Chinese money.
It's all trade-offs. All trade-offs,
I do.
John.
And if that matters to you as such, that's great. It doesn't to me. And I will advocate. I don't have any moral qualms by saying the following. I am pro-life personally. I wouldn't choose it. I will advocate for abortion rights globally and nationally. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see Bill Maher this past week in his new rules? And he talked about celebrities, and it's almost germane to this. Because he said, celebrities, every celebrity goes through and he goes, Cher and Beyonce and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, and those are just the ones with one name. Everybody endorsed Kamala Harris. She lost. And he said, I get yelled at by celebrities all the time saying, I'm a citizen. I have every right. And he said, two things can be true at the same time. You do have that right. What I'm saying is don't.
Yeah.
Don't get yourself involved. I think this is one of the situations where the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has every right, First Amendment and such. And if that's what they want to do, great. I'm just saying don't.
But see, I would say that to her. I would say the exact same thing to her. Just don't. Just don't write to the Chicago Tribune about abortion. Like, I think we're both pointing fingers at the same problem in opposite directions.
In their opposite directions, right. And again, if the end result of this entire brouhaha is the following, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops puts out their statement, I go, oh, great, that's wonderful. And she still gets appointed. That's pretty much, it's like when Obama came and spoke, and he was the president of the United States, and we had Father Jenkins on, the former president. He said he was an extraordinarily talented public figure. We invited him knowing full well how he felt about abortion rights. And to their credit, Notre Dame, they basically said, we hear what you're saying. We're going forward with our decision. And I think they're going to do the same thing here.
That was 18 years ago, and we barely
Was it really?
Yeah, well, roughly, right? Because it was the start of his
2009, yeah, 17 years ago. Holy shamoly.
But think about it. There was a controversy then, John, about just bringing somebody pro-abortion to talk on campus, right? We're talking about giving somebody a paycheck and a platform, and you speak for our university. Think of how far we've slid. Think of how far we've slid.
Come on. You know how you went, John? I'm going to do the exact same thing. Timmy C. Come on, dude. She's an expert. Susan Ostermann, Dr. Susan Ostermann is an expert in Asia and Asian studies. That's it. She's been hired to head an institute dealing appropriately with it. Her scholarship is in line with it. Her research is in line with it. You probably have a point that when you get to a certain level, I think this is kind of the Bill Maher sort of phenomenon, which is you have every right to do it. Just don't. She probably shouldn't necessarily, but if somebody asks what's my opinion on something, I voice it on this podcast. I'm probably going to talk myself out of certain jobs, right?
Right, me too.
Yeah. So, right. I just, to me, I can't square this simple statement. the church is run by men. That's not okay to me. It just isn't.
Well, see, this is the psychogenic fallacy, right? You're saying because of this other fact, I can't
no.
statement.
You're making it sound like that's just my one big issue. I'm not a single issue voter as it relates to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
I don't agree with their stance on abortion. I don't agree with their stance on birth control. I don't agree with their stance on women. I don't agree with, all but endorsing President Trump because he's against abortion. I don't agree with, people have said this to me before about, geez, blah, blah. And I said, if I go to a restaurant and have a bad meal, I'll still tip appropriately and I might come back. But if I have a bad meal, they throw a drink in my face, they overcharge me and tell me I got to get up because they need the table, I'm probably not going back. I'm at that point with the Catholic Church. This isn't just a bad meal, right?
Okay.
And I have a friend of mine who is associated with the Catholic Church. I won't tell you his role, but you can probably deduce it. And he was the same one who, when 25 years ago, 30 years ago, said, I'd much rather have an alive parishioner than a dead, morally correct one. I asked him, because I sent him a text after this article came out about the appointment, and you know what he said? I'm going to read it to you verbatim. So he said the following: they can't just get past this abortion thing. As a matter of fact, all things sexual. Even as the church's position on sex has been an unmitigated disaster, they still keep beating it to death. And he's told me multiple times, if you want to read something the Catholic Church has done right over the centuries, read anything they've written about poverty and justice. If you want to read everything they've done wrong, read anything that involves sex. And that's delineating it down to its simplest essence. But I think there's some truth to that. Do you not?
Yeah. I can. I mean, I definitely think they've described the value of life well in ways that resonate with people after birth, for sure. And the pre-birth part, people don't want to or don't join on.
Well, so that's the other thing, and we'll leave on this note, and then we'll get into our heroes and whack jobs and so forth. But I have heard, it's funny you say that, because I have heard for years that the criticism, which I think is legitimate of Republicans, is that they're obsessed with the unborn. They just don't like the born. To their credit, the Catholics, I will say, do fight for immigrants, do fight for, equal access for things. And they've been pretty consistent on the value of life, both before and after. So I will give them props and their due credit for consistency. I'm just not going to that restaurant.
Yeah.
So
that's fine.
Anyhow, but Timmy, I enjoyed it as always, and even though we lived one door apart from each other, and our rooms don't even exist anymore, we came to completely different conclusions on our university and on Catholicism. But Timmy, let me start with my whack job this week.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
And then we'll get in. I want to hear your hero. There was a famous senator from New York State who was a Rhodes Scholar. His name was Daniel Patrick Moynihan, and he was always respected both by Democrats and Republicans because whether or not you agreed with his position, he was very intelligent, extremely intelligent, and he was also very, very consistent. And he has one of my favorite expressions, which is defining deviancy down, which is basically coarsening the dialogue, and what was once unacceptable has become acceptable, and so forth and so on. And again, I have seen instances of this from Democrats. I've seen instances of this from Republicans, but I've never seen it this bad. The Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, got in front of Congress. And I understand Congress is not, just like the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, I would dare say that Congress is not in the business of necessarily being sort of a moral beacon, if you will. But they do deserve respect, and her behavior before Congress this week was nothing if not grotesque and unacceptable. As such, I'm going to make her my whack job of the week. I saw some clips. I won't belabor it. I won't go into too much. But again, the Trump presidency writ large to me is just defining deviancy down, and she continues that downward trend, and she facilitates and says to other people it's okay to behave this way. No. I'm reminded of the Onion headline after Trump was elected in 2016. Do you know what it said, Tim?
No, what?
It said, study concludes, ... It's still nowhere near okay to behave like Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
So, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, is my whack job this week.
I don't know exactly what you said, but I will also piggyback that J.D. Vance has also been quite coarse in his dialogue and speech lately.
I sent you that article that George Will wrote, right? About how he's I mean, this is a brilliant guy who went to Yale Law School and is a published author, best-selling author, and he's just coarse for coarse sake, and I just find it to be grotesque.
I always say people who use really foul language that have no imagination, because you can convey the same idea more creatively. I always say.
Yeah, my kids are on me all the time when I swear. So yeah, I should be better.
So my hero. So I'm working with my fourth seeing eye dog. I don't recall if I highlighted these.
Wait
folks.
a minute, which four? You had Electra, you had
Vance, Bella,
Hootie,
and Bella in the middle.
Did I not meet Bella? I think Bella's the only one I haven't met.
Yeah, you might not have met Bella.
Yeah, because I think you had Vance when you got married.
Yep.
Right? Okay. And how long did you have Bella?
About 10 years.
That sounds about right. We were both procreating.
Yeah.
I talked to Funk this week, and it's so funny because he doesn't have kids, and it's just so funny. I'll be like, yeah, we'll get together. We got together last year. That was 11 years ago. It's like, oh yeah. So, yeah. But anyway, go on Hootie, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so we get the Seeing Eye, I think it's the Seeing Eye Guide magazine. Blue Leaf likes to leaf through it. And they're having a real shortage of...
Hold on a second. They send a magazine to blind people about...
No, you can ask for what you want.
I know, but just think of that. Say that again out loud.
You can get it in Braille. You can get it online.
Okay.
So,
do you read Braille, by the way?
Yeah,
You're not that great, you said, right?
No, I read Braille fine.
Oh, okay.
So she was leafing through the regular magazine. Hootie just walked in when I started talking, by the way. And they're having a shortage of puppy raisers. So after the dogs are born at Seeing Eye, they're sent out with families to get socialized, learn basic obedience, and be ready for the actual job of being trained to be a Seeing Eye dog. So these people do wonderful work. I'm grateful to everyone who's helped socialize my dogs. And there's a shortage of these. And it's not just Seeing Eye experiencing this. It looks like it was worsened like a lot of things after COVID. But there's a need out there. And if anybody's heart and home is warm enough and ready for that, these places could use help raising their puppies. So I guess they're heroes and a request, just letting people know.
Applications for heroes. How about
that?
Yeah. Open opportunities to be a hero. Timmy, I love you to death, and I do, but I don't know if I could be a foster parent, and I don't know if I could let the dog go. That would be so hard. It would almost be impossible for me. I
think it would be hard. I think what they do is they let the people know something about what the dog went off to do. To try to keep...
I know, but I couldn't. Something is not good enough for me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Yeah. It's just I would love him too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be hard.
I mean, that's what probably makes him even more of a hero, the ability to do that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see what you guys, you and Blue Leaf and Katie see in medicine. I couldn't do it. Yeah. So you guys are my heroes. So, no, that's great, Timmy. I like it. Applications to be a hero.
Yeah.
So. Well, Timmy, I think this was the essence of the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? You and I disagreeing and still being buddies. I still love you, pal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and just anyone out there, all 12 and 12 of you that are listening, if you could, spread the word and rate our show and even write a review, that would be helpful. But just spread the word is what we would politely ask. And this is John Boland signing off saying, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances.
And this is Tim saying, if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Let's keep talking.
We'll be talking about the Ring doorbell Super Bowl ad and surrounding controversy in an upcoming episode. Here's a trailer to set the stage.
From the forges of Amazon and the heart of Bezos were forged millions of rings. They were sent forth throughout the land. Rings that feed on sloth, worry, and fear. Rings that take as they give, always seeing, always listening. 1 million rings to watch them all, and with their data, find them.